Affairs Minister Kiren Rijiju listing out all the trade deals that India has inked so far and how India-EU trade deal and India-US trade deal are extremely significant, of course, as are all 8 already in place and the 9th that is likely to be inked first, and what this means for Indian exports. NDA partners seen in these images. How is this to be taken forward now in terms of implementation on ground? Whether it's the budget or whether it is the trade deal, how it impacts, that is something that will be spoken about in greater detail. Once again, let's try and listen in to Kiren Rijiju. India is being garlanded. Praful Patel of the NCP now garlanding Prime Minister Narendra Modi, all NDA partners, Defence Minister flanking the Prime Minister, BJP President and Home Minister with him, Nitin Nabeen and Amit Shah. And amidst chants of Bharat Mata Ki Jai, the Prime Minister waves to all NDA partners. Very, very crucial. We will wait to hear from the Prime Minister. These are, of course, some of the images that have been put out. First, the new BJP President, he was felicitated. And then Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the India-US trade deal that was announced by US President. We just read out what Prime Minister Narendra Modi had put out on social media platform X on 18% tariff on made in India exports to the US. Piyush Mishra now joins me for more. Piyush, it's a huge shot in the arm, the India-EU deal, and now, of course, conversations on India-US deal.
Well, that's right, Gaurav. After the mother of all deals, India-EU deals, now we have the greatest ever deal which has been inked with United States, where the tariff has been brought down from 50% to 18%. It's indeed a significant achievement for India, for the commerce industry, for the trade department, and that's what we also saw being echoed in India's parliamentary party meet. Remember that the meeting began with the felicitation of our newly appointed BJP National President Nitin Nabeen, who was felicitated by all the four leaders of National Democratic Alliance. After that, Kiren Rijiju, who is the Union Parliamentary Affairs Minister, he spoke about the trade deals those have had India with those have had in the last few months with various countries, be it about European Union or with Australia or with UAE. There are various countries with whom we have signed unprecedented trade deals, and of all the deals, the greatest ever deal is India-US trade deal, in which the tariff has been brought down from 50% to 18%. About that, Rijiju was giving all the information, and soon after that, we also saw he requested all the parliamentary party leaders of NDA to come out and felicitate PM Narendra Modi for this big achievement. We also saw the visuals of all the four leaders of NDA coming out and garlanding PM Narendra Modi felicitation programs took place, where all the leaders have felicitated PM Narendra Modi. Soon after that, Bharat Mata Ki Jai chants were also heard. In fact, Prime Minister after that also waved at all the NDA leaders. Those were present. So as of now, as we are speaking, PM Narendra Modi is present there. The meeting is still underway. The meeting is likely to continue for another 1 hour or so, where most likely Prime Minister is going to talk about the budget, the kind of big announcements that have been made. He is also likely to speak about the benefits the trade industry is going to have because of this unprecedented trade deal which has been signed between India and US. He is likely to put his focus also on the India-EU trade deal, and parts of which India has had. India is the only country which is also enjoying the lowest tariff. There are multiple emerging markets, Gaurav, like China, Pakistan. There are other economies, but among all these economies, India is now having the lowest tariff, and that is also huge, significant. We remember, Gaurav, that as to how in the last few months, multiple trade negotiations have happened, trade meetings have happened. The group of leaders from India, secretary secretaries from India have traveled to US. From US also, team had also come. So multiple negotiations have happened, and after that itself, we are now seeing how this trade deal has been inked. And after this trade deal, which has been signed, we are now seeing as to how the NDA leaders are congratulating and also felicitating PM Narendra Modi for this huge achievement.
So, India EU deal described as the mother of all deals. President Trump then said that, that's nothing. There will be a daddy of deals or words to that effect when the India US deal happens. Any word by when will the deal be inked and any details on what the fine print is? Because there are several aspects where clarity is still lacking, Piyush. Are we likely to see the parliament being briefed first on this?
Well, no doubt about it. We are expecting a word coming in from Union Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, where he is likely to brief the Parliament on this big achievement. As far as the inking of the deal is concerned, the final contours of this deal is concerned, we are expecting that to also be out. But the primary thing, the first thing of bringing down the tariff that has been agreed upon by the both the countries, the US and India, and that's why we also saw the kind of social media posts. Those were not only put forth by US President Donald Trump, but also by PM Narendra Modi, thanking Donald Trump for agreeing to bringing down the tariff. Now, after this decision has been taken, we will see more and more decisions to be taken by both the countries as far as signing trade deals are concerned. What more sectors are going to be impacted? What more, things are going to be discussed? That will be decided in coming future. But this deal is being seen as the greatest ever deal. And today, throughout the day, when the discussion on budget will take place, when the discussion on motion of thanks to the president's address will take place, we will see BJP speakers especially talking about India, EU trade deal, India, the US trade deal, and also they're going to thank PM Narendra Modi for his visionary leadership that has helped the country to achieve such a huge milestone. There are Indian leaders also, Gaurav, who are present in this meeting, and even they were very much happy with the fact that India has been able to bring US on tables and has also been bring down the largest ever tariff.
Absolutely. 50% tariff is what India faced at one point of time. It will come down to 18%. Remains to be seen how quickly does that happen? How quickly does that take effect? Professor Sabisachi, Saha, your reading of the enthusiasm. So we see markets, they've reacted positively. The NDA is reacting positively. The opposition says there's tremendous skepticism because we still do not have details. How do you read this?
Ordinary because so far we had kind of certain concerns how to go about the US trade deal, but I think the strategic patience, the leadership of the Prime Minister, the government's own effort has led to dealing with such a situation where we had to face immense trade barriers in the US market. Even as we talk about diversification, US would remain a very, very important trading partner for India for multiple reasons. And at this point, the way we have regained the confidence among the political leadership, as well as strengthening the trade linkages. It is absolutely the numbers that have come in, the tariff commitments from the US side. So all this definitely signal stabilizing trading relations with US again, and definitely markets were waiting for such signals for a long time. The sentiments had to be boosted, and I think the trade deal at this point looks very, very positive development for India.
Is that also your reading, Mr. Ahluwalia, that this is very positive, markets reacting positively, but a word of caution, we still do not have details as the opposition points out?
Yeah, no doubt about it, Gaurav. I think absolutely extremely positive. I would not personally worry so much about what the opposition is concerned about, as in what are the terms that the US is going to get. Trade is a win-win. Even if the US gets good terms, it's benefits to the Indian consumers. If we have segments that are going to be concerned, like farmers, like dairy producers, we should protect those people directly instead of protecting products, right? It is never sensible to protect products. We should protect people. We can give direct benefit transfers. We can help them out in other ways instead of blocking trade. So that's not what I would worry about. The thing that we have to watch out for is implementation. Implementation is an extremely crucial thing. We've seen Donald Trump go back on South Korea and say, we are going to cancel this trade deal, right? Because they're taking too long to ratify it. So implementation is going to be extremely important, both in terms of ratification and in terms of how our customs deals with goods coming in from the US, deals with goods coming in from the EU, because that is one reason that we have failed to take advantage of trade deals in the past. It's that our customs still creates issues at the border, even though there is a trade deal between the two countries. But other than these two aspects, I think this is fantastic news. EU, US, both happening. These are the biggest trading blocks in the world by far. There is nothing else that even comes close. So we should absolutely feel very good about this at this point in time.
That's a very positive note, in the morning, that we should feel fantastic, or we should feel very good about it. Professor Saha, is your reading, considering India-EU deal, negotiations finally done, may take 6 months to a year to put pen to paper for it to be implemented on ground? Do you see the same kind of time frame when it comes to India-US deal also?
No, I think since this has been announced last night by the leaders of the both countries, and we definitely had a very long-run process of negotiations with the US, and the concerns that were raised. At the same time, this has been a very, very intense process. So I think here on, it should not take a very long time to come to a implementable framework on both sides.
Okay, Badri Narayan, in your view, and wearing your legal hat, what are areas that India can be happy about, that it's a big win for India, and what are areas that you would be concerned or skeptical given the limited information in public domain?
I think a few areas I think India will be very happy about. One is going to be textile, others going to be toys, and areas such as chemicals. I think those will be areas which automatically I think everybody will be very happy about. I am a little bit concerned about areas like steel and aluminium. These are big exports by India. As you know, India always faced various custom duties, anti-dumping duties, safeguard duties across the world when it comes to our steel manufacturing. And as you know, we have overcapacity of steel manufacturing in India. And generally, the world goes ups and downs when it comes to steel. It's a very, very big commodity. Other area could be automobile and automobile exports and automobile parts. Again, we'll have to see how those are going to be played out in the future. We'll need more details with respect to that. Then will be other areas such as pharmaceuticals. I'm hoping that healthcare is one of the areas where US wants to reduce its impact from a price perspective, and therefore it'll encourage Indian pharma. But that's one area where again there could be an impact. We'll have to see how the details churn out. So I think these are the areas that I feel are concerned. I think US, I think the benefit that they're going to get is I think they're going to do more transactions with us on high tech. So their interest is selling nuclear reactors, giving us Boeing planes, defense, which typically we've gone towards France or Europe. I think that US would want to supply to them. And I think India is quite happy to pick it up. I think that's really going to be there. The one sore area, which is probably going to be something that we'll have to look at, is going to be agri. Okay. India protects its agri, US protects its agri, but it's an area where both the countries have tried to get access to the other countries. US has always been, for US, it's very important to sell things like soya beans, and other agri products to countries like India. India has resisted traditionally because India has been self-sufficient, and the cost arbitrage is not that various. There could be
Rahul
certain
Ahluwalia,
areas will be there, but I think mostly
you
there will be
agree
areas.
with that? And before I come to you to respond to this, because a trade deal, while it's called as a win-win, it's win some, lose some. Is that how you look at a trade deal? Now, when we look at what is in it for India, there are those who say it's easier access to the US market. Is it at the cost of strategic autonomy, as some argue? The opposition is already asking, why is it that the Americans are now making announcements for us, whether we buy oil from Russia or we buy oil from Venezuela? Are we losing that strategic autonomy? We have, of course, lower tariffs on our exports. That's a big gain, and especially when it comes to not just MSME, but also textile, leather, large labor-intensive market. But is losing Russian oil a disadvantage for India, or getting cheaper Venezuelan oil offsets that? Rahul Ahluwalia, where do you stand on this?
Look, on this strategic autonomy question, I mean, we anyway are doing what we need to do, right? So the US is the world's largest economy, most technologically advanced economy. They are opposed to our largest adversary, which is China. We have been clearly signaling that our strategic doctrine is to be closer to the US for at least 10 to 15 years now. And I don't think that there is anything wrong with that. It makes sense. It is in our strategic interest. Russian oil is an extremely sort of minor thing. It is anyway now as expensive as other oil. It's not that Russian oil is coming at a big discount. Russia is a country that has not been growing. It has in fact been shrinking for the last many years. It is not a country of the future. So are we sacrificing our strategic autonomy by doing what we anyway want to do, which is to align with the world's most powerful and economically large country? No, I don't think so. I don't think that this is a sacrifice.
That's a very powerful point that you make, Rahul Ahluwalia. And Professor Saha, would you agree with this, that this is a deal that's happening? As many see, there were countries that literally did a sajda to the US. They kowtowed before President Trump. The moment he made an announcement, you had heads of state and governments rushing to Washington, D.C. and picking up the phone and dialing him, seeking his favor. India did not do that. India continued to negotiate for what was described as not just a win-win, but a deal that would be fair and equitable for both partners. Do you see this deal as that India is not a subordinate partner to the US?
Absolutely, because this ambiguity continued for some time, but India did hold on to its strategic patience, as I would say, and India has been an outlier, and India's leadership in the last couple of years at all global platforms has been quite remarkable, because India could show the courage to present its views in a coherent manner, and definitely drawing on the experience that we had with different countries. India believes in multi-alignment, but at the same time, India is very keen to strengthen the partnership with our key partners and the larger economies, because that is in the country's interest in the long run as we develop our roadmap towards Viksit Bharat. And US absolutely is an indispensable partner when we connect on some of the areas of trade and economics, because it is linked to the manufacturing sector. We have the service sector connect
Rahul
with US
Ahluwalia
and
wants
others.
to come in, as does Mr. Badri Narayan. Rahul, just give me 30 seconds before I just get Mr. Badri Narayan on the legal aspect of a trade deal. As Rahul Ahluwalia pointed out, Mr. Badri Narayan, America says something today, may just do something very different like it did with South Korea, saying that, okay, you're not ratifying it, another 10% tariffs come your way. Do we see a situation like that between India and America? Or you think in the past 1 year, the relationship has traveled some distance and perhaps is likely to be more mature?
I think you can't compare India with Korea or any other individual countries in the ASEAN. I think we have got one advantage of having a very strong EU and EFTA deal. So that's something which is behind us. So US knows that EU and India can get closer. We have 32 countries in the EU which are now part of that deal. I don't expect there to be any major issue. The only area where there can be an issue is the use and purchase of Russian oil. One last thing is that I think we still need to see the details of the trade deal. These trade deals are no longer simple, 5-pager trade deal that we used to do on what is the custom tariff rates for different line items. These are complex trade deals. We will have access to market not just in terms of goods, but in terms of services, H-1B visas, access to IT services, pharmaceutical services, healthcare services, medical tourism. I think there is a whole host of complexities which are there, which probably will need to get ironed out. So those are the areas where if something goes amiss, there could be some delays. Um, EU deal also will take longer to ratify because it needs to go to the European Union Parliament. There needs to be finishing of all of the areas. While Donald Trump typically has managed these tariffs through executive action, and that's something which is pending in the US Supreme Court, whether he has the power to do so. But as of now, we think that US is probably likely to bring down these rates much earlier, and we will still negotiate with the US delegations on the details with respect to what it is going to be. And I still feel that there will be still a large number of items that we will need to close out with them, but I don't think they'll be in a position to, for want of a better word, bully us into agreeing to their terms merely because they can increase or reduce, considering we've got many more friends today than we probably had a year ago.
Multilateralism. Multilateralism is something that India continued to insist on, as did the European Union. Rahul, you wanted to come in on the aspect whether India can get bullied or not. And overall, the impression is India stood firm. India also did not go for the surround sound of India being called a dead economy or fueling the Russian war, even though that's not true. But India focused on the deal. You wanted to come in on this, Rahul?
Yeah, absolutely, Gaurav. I think like this aspect of India being focused on its strategic interest, which is the deal, is because I think we should reject this framing that Donald Trump has adopted, that trade is win-lose, right? That I will win the deal and you will lose the deal, right? If we get access to the US market and the US gets access to India's market, there is no win-loss going on here. Every Indian consumer retains the choice to buy an American product or not to buy an American product, right? They can refuse. Even if dairy gets access to the Indian market, Indian consumers can just say, I will not buy American dairy, right? So it is not that India has lost even if we give access to the Indian dairy.
Though politically, that could be a hot potato for the Prime
Exactly,
Minister
exactly,
and the government.
Exactly, because producers can lose, right? Dairy producers in India can stand to lose. So politically, we should be very careful about protecting certain producers by giving them some benefits that where they stand to lose. That's what we have to be careful about. Domestic special interests that stand to lose from the trade deal. India as a whole stands to gain.
That's a very big point you're making. India as a whole stands to gain. There are sectors that may have to be protected or may have to get special protection: agriculture, dairy. Even in dairy and agriculture, there are some segments that are being talked about, and we'll talk about it in greater detail. Something that's not manufactured in India, something that's really niche. Can that come in? Is that a softener? It also depends how, and that is why this NDA parliamentary meet becomes very crucial, because it's also how that message goes across to the rest of the country, Badri Narayan, that becomes extremely, extremely crucial. Whether there are certain products, we were told about cranberries or certain other things that are not even made, that are not even produced in India. If that comes in, or some blue cheese or high-end cheese, if that comes into India, does that impact the Indian producers? But before I come to that, I want to take our viewers through some of the surround sound that followed in the that was there in the past 7 to 8 months. Remember, President Trump at one point of time called India a dead economy. What's President Trump saying now? India to buy $500 billion worth of American goods. Now, is India to buy $500 billion worth of American goods, or is that wordplay? Because the compact in 2025, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi went to the United States and there was an agreement between the two, it was to double bilateral trade to $500 billion by 2030. Though we've lost out a year, it's already 2026, and that was a framework that was decided on in 2025. Then Donald Trump earlier, he had said, I don't care what India does. What's he saying now? That both Prime Minister Narendra Modi and I, we get things done. He's talked about though he's always talked about his very close, association and respect for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. What did he say earlier? He said, have very little business with India. What's he saying now? That relationship with India is stronger now than before. He said Indian economy is dead. Clearly, he's not saying that anymore. Or whether it's Howard Lutnick or Scott Bessent saying that India is fueling the war in Russia by buying Russian oil, or Europe is fueling that war by buying that same refined oil from India. So, Professor Saha, all that surround sound is now history, or do we see it can still come back some way or the other, and that is why India will have to ignore the surround sound and only look at the deal, as Rahul, Ahluwalia and actually all three of you are putting it, the deal is in India's favor?
Yeah, I mean, India has demonstrated under the leadership of Prime Minister a very matured foreign policy position, and as I mentioned, strategic patience despite several provocations at multiple points in time. So once we look at the long-term interest of the country and frame our narrative accordingly, it helps us also steer our own narrative and the way we want to approach foreign policy and response to some of the global events that are unfolding at this point. And this trade deal is connected to our economic growth, it connected to our economic opportunities, and the roadmap that we lies in front of us. So foreign policy and economics getting connected very, very strongly at this point, and the trade deal is the outcome.
So how much of it, Badri Narayan, in your view, is just buy and sell, and how much of this would encourage Atmanirbhar Bharat, manufacture in India, make in India, and when it comes to high-end technology that India quite urgently requires?
Yeah. So I think Gaurav, I think these are all very, very good points. I just wanted to say a few things. One, I think we should agree and we should appreciate the fact that India is a 4 trillion economy today and will
Yes.
probably reach over the next 5 years at between 8 and 10 trillion economy. And that is something which I think US recognizes and everybody else in the world recognizes. The EU deal took 20 years. Why did it happen suddenly? It's because India's emergence as a stable economic power with a very strong local consumption. So US is looking that is it possible when it goes from 4 trillion to 10 trillion, when my per capita income crosses some magic figure such as $3,000, $5,000, which changes the way a consumer consumes products. You said the blue cheese and cranberries. Indians will start consuming some of these items as we kind of go up the value chain, and US understands that. So I think these are all very good places for us to be in. It also understands that Indian consumers, as they consume more, and it's got a big country, a uniform market, with all the issues with GST, it still makes it one market. Our income tax rates have come down. We are encouraging year on year cleanup, and there's a lot more automation going through the entire system. So what I feel is that investors or long-term viewers, economists, capitalists, and people who are looking at India are looking at it in a very, very big way. And therefore, I feel if we get the policies right and the government keeps making changes and improvements, if you're able to attract manufacturing to India, even a portion of it, if you're able to build high-end products, for example, we are investing in things like semiconductors, we're
Yes.
investing in like chip designing, data centers, we are investing in textile upgradation. So all of these, I think, are going to have an impact. And when you set the stage, then you will have companies from the US, from Europe, from Japan come in and invest. And in the long run, we will get the benefit of that. So this is why I think that this trade deal is important. It's come at a very opportune time. President Trump is seeing that India will move from 4 trillion to 10 trillion. It's not a dead economy by any means. Those are all word plays. But today, if he is able to get access to Indian market, both for Venezuelan oil as also his high tech, and if Indian economy keeps growing and the consumption is a strong story, I think there's a win-win for both of us, like what Rahul and Professor has been saying. That I
It's
think
very
we
actually
are in a
very
good place.
heartening to hear. And Rahul, we are not letting Russia down and going in for Venezuelan oil, because if we were to rewind pre-2022, we were anyway not buying much Russian oil. We just took best advantage of the situation. Now are we trying to take advantage of the other best situation? Does that impact our relationship with Russia adversely in any way?
I don't think it should, frankly. And I mean, because Russia is not exactly got a lot of friends on the global stage. So, to the extent that we remain relatively friendly to them, they should be fine. If we don't buy Russian oil, does not suddenly turn us into an enemy because it's not in our interest, right? Every country has to look out for its interest. I'll just give a slightly different perspective on manufacturing in India and why
Sure.
people want to invest in manufacturing in India. I think as large as the Indian market is relative to the global market is still very small. I think if we look at our recent manufacturing success, the biggest manufacturing success in India is Apple iPhones, right? We are now making anywhere between 20 to 30% of the world's iPhones, but less than 2% of iPhone global revenue happens from India. So let's be very clear about it. Apple is not making iPhones in India because India has a large market. Apple is making iPhones in India because it wants to sell to the world from India. So we should be very clear that any company will invest in a very big way in India only if it can service the world from India. And because the world market is several orders of magnitude bigger than the Indian market, the OECD countries, EU plus the US, have an approximately $60 trillion market. Our market is $4 trillion, right? So
And that is what we should focus on.
That's
the
what we should
$60
focus on.
trillion market.
Yeah.
And manufacture in India, high-end
For the
technology.
world.
That is why it is so crucial. We have age on our side. Age profile is on our side. Language, technology, science, everything works for us.
Absolutely.
Of course, if we all work together as one country, keeping, as my show says, India first. I want to thank all my guests on this part of the debate. Such a privilege to talk to all of you and learn so much from you on this.